The last time we addressed the nation here, we were particularly addressing matters relating to elections, ongoing and behind us. And the DF raised many issues, and we're here to make a recap, especially now that part of the process has been partly completed. The DF congratulates Ugandans, especially the candidates and voters who participated in the recently concluded presidential and parliamentary elections, an exercise of their constitutional rights and civic responsibilities. That exercise, the first of the long haul, was conducted on the 15th of this month. We're here to make a recap. The DF, however, takes exception and is gravely concerned, and hereunder raises issues of irresponsibility on the part of the Electoral Commission, bordering on the conduct of the recently concluded process. One such concern that borders on criminality on the part of the EC relates to failure of the biometric voter verification kits. And we are putting failure in quotes as DF, failure in quotes of the biometric voter verification kits. DF is particularly concerned on the widespread failure of the machines in the just concluded presidential and parliamentary elections. The malfunctioning of the kits rendered the entire electoral process incredible and unverifiable for a process that cost the taxpayer over 150 billion shillings. To dismally fail on deployment, the following questions now emerge. One, whether the machines were transparently and legally procured by the Electoral Commission. And that to add the manner of selection of the supplier in effect. Three, conduct of due diligence on both technology and the supplier. Four, availability of a technical evaluation report prior procurement. Five, time for training and testing of the new technology. And six, the credibility of the simulation efforts, if any. Seven, availability of sufficient backup plan of these kits. And eight, value for money. The failure of the biometric kits led to delays in many areas, up to 5 to 7 hours. Voting that was lawfully scheduled to start at 7 a.m. in many places began after 11 o'clock in many places. And on the part of the EC, instead of compensating for the lost time proportionately, the EC only extended the voting period by 1 hour, thereby disenfranchising millions of voters countrywide. You saw the EC saying it's about 52%. That is hogwash. We all were there. We know no 50% turned up anywhere in the country. The situation was compounded by the late arrival of voting materials in many voting areas, which seemed deliberate. When the biometric system failed, the EC authorized the use of manual authentication of voters, with the clumsy reasoning that it was necessary to override the law in order to allow Ugandans to exercise their constitutional right to choose their leaders. How lousy. DF is concerned that contrary to the use of the biometric technology as the panacea to fraud and multiple voting. In many parts of the country, the decision to resort to use of manual verification was fraudulently exploited, resulting into multiple voting and ballot stuffing in many parts of the country. The legal basis for use of biometric voting outlaws manual voting automatically, providing that no one who is not biometrically verified should be allowed to vote. More still, that where the electronic system fails, elections at that polling station must not go on. That is the law. Notwithstanding all excuses by the Electoral Commission for the biometric mess, the DF has come to the conclusion that the Electoral Commission had not prepared enough to adapt to new technology, and worse still, the care had no backup plan. But like we said in the preamble, we contend that actually they were deliberately doing this to make the whole process messy and facilitate multiple voting and ballot stuffing. The EC did not comply with the law, and thus the recently concluded presidential and parliamentary elections was conducted outside the law. The DF observes that the biometric voter verification kits worked smoothly and effectively in selected regions and constituencies. You noted that in some constituencies, all machines were working, but failed dismally in targeted constituencies, resulting into fraud, voter suppression, disenfranchisement, and other election malpractices. That said, the DF hereby informs the country that we categorically reject the outcome of the entire presidential and parliamentary election process, and we are consulting on steps to take aimed at challenging processes and outcomes variously. You remember, citizens, that the DF has been at the forefront. We forewarned the country a priori the elections that we do not believe that the Electoral Commission had prepared enough to use these machines. Remember, my last address here at the DF headquarters was particularly on those machines. And we're not here to say that it's a deja vu. We're just saying that citizens should learn to listen. And political actors should stop grandstanding and they should learn to listen and cooperate. And now we know that actually the machines were not intended to facilitate an election, but as a facade to blur wide-ranging electoral fraud as we saw it in various parts of the country. And therefore, as the DF, we cannot associate with an outcome blurred and littered all over with fraud and malpractice. Remember, we talked about ill preparation, lack of training, lack of stimulation. You can retrieve our last presser. These are the issues. You must have worked with your cameras at polling stations, with the two officials fidgeting with the gadgets, and in many places, indeed, the EC deployed and trained polling officials, essentially because they had intended to make the entire process messy to benefit and get particular outcomes. That is addressed on the machines. Secondly, the false declaration of results by presiding officers as a very serious electoral matter we established. The EF is concerned by the rampant false declarations of election results by presiding officers in many constituencies nationwide. In the instance, authentic declaration of result forms were shortchanged in many places to include Masaka, Gulu, Soroti, Kampala, Mukono, Jinja, to mention but a few. with losers being declared as winners. It's now common practice that presiding officers falsify results and courageously announce losers and then scornfully advise winning candidates to agree by such fraudulent action to go to court. I'm sure you've captured many such courageous presiding officers, returning officers, telling winners to go to court and announcing losers with courage and straight faces. This has to be stopped. And we invite the next parliament, it will have to any effect on elections, to take this as a major reform matter and enact a law to criminalize false declaration of results by presiding officers. Because apparently, because they have gotten away with so many of such actions, they seem to have made it an art of sorts now. That you can freely declare a loser as a winner. After all, nothing will happen to you. As the DF, a party that believes firmly in a wide-ranging constitutional and electoral reforms, this is a major reform issue that must happen if Ugandans will continue having trust in electoral processes going forward. 3, man of declaration of presidential election results. DF is concerned by the manner of declaration of presidential elections results, which leaves no room for verification. The country must adopt a process where agents of presidential candidates will verify the authenticity of their forms at the EC National Tally Center before declaration, which is not the case today. The presidential election results, therefore, announced by the EC in the present circumstances cannot be verifiable and are prone to falsification. This urgently calls for fundamental reform. But you remember, the DF offered a solution in our reform document that presidential election results should be declared at district level to avoid transmitted fraud as results move from one area to another. And I hope those who desire to see Uganda change for the better will learn to listen. Because when you offer these solutions, we were scorned shockingly by parties in opposition. And I have seen one of them say, we want the EC to upload all their forms. It's nonsense. Because even if they upload it today, they have already falsified them. We offered a very simple solution that lies in informing the law on the presidential elections. So we insist as the DF that that's the matter. We're not going to let lying. We're going to pick it up from where we left it. And now that we have many victims, we hope that we'll have people to listen going forward. For involvement of the military and security agencies. The DF decries the blatant involvement of the military, security agencies in the election process. And we have said before, this is contrary to the law. There were several polling stations positioned inside military installations, the police and prisons. For instance, in Entebbe municipality, those who followed, several polling stations were located inside the army and police barracks. In Masaka City, the same thing. 2 polling stations were positioned inside the Masaka police barracks. And in Luzira, in Akawa East, 4 polling stations were positioned inside the Luzira maximum prison. Polling agents and other voters were denied access to these installations, rendering the process really incredible. By law, the role of the presiding officer, Uganda must join the League of Civilized Nations, where elections are civil processes requiring no military intervention. The UPDF constitutional role is to ensure security of Ugandans and their property by ensuring Ugandan borders, by securing Ugandan borders and from foreign aggression and threats. Elections per se are not an external security threat, And therefore, it is imperative that the UPDF remains neutral rather than a partisan actor in Uganda's political process. On polling day, I'll give you an example. In Luzira, voting started, I think, probably about 5 a.m. And by the time the agents of our candidates arrived in Luzira at the gate, the boxes were all full. The 4 boxes at Luzira. And they were inside. And there was no access. This is what happened. I personally called the commissioner in charge of Kampala, Dr. Simba, and raised this matter with him. And he said he has extended the matter to the returning officer of Kampala, the one Mr. Kasasha, I think. Huh? Kasacha Rashid. And Kasacha said he has failed and referred the matter back to Dr. Simba. So I called back Dr. Simba. He cannot deny this. Dr. Simba told me that I should extend the matter to the chairperson, Justice Byabakama, that he has also failed. So I called Justice Byabakama. Luckily he picked. He said he has referred the matter to Dr. Simba. Now, yeah, so what are we talking about? That is part of what happened. You can ask them when you meet them at the press whether I called them about Luzira, and they said they had no solution. So effectively, the EC had sanctioned the fraud in Nakawa East. That happened in the massacre. Dr. Abed can give you a long testimony. What happened? In Entebbe, the Honorable Kakembo called me around 11 o'clock and said, what's going here is just drama. I just want free meat for future use. Probably my children will see a film of what was supposed to be an election. And said, there's nothing I can do. The military is voting in rounds. They have made a circle, they vote, come back, vote, and go. So that's the kind of nonsense.